Japan now and sick as a dog, yes. Sorry guys, my voice is completely gone. I got sick somehow during the travel back to Japan, but I feel like I need to get this video out or else I'm gonna forget all my impressions of the IM. So bear with me with just this video as I go through all my impressions and talk about my trip to the great lands of Singapore. And what a great trip it was. I loved every second of it. It was non-stop from landing all the way to flying back. It was packed full of just amazing things, from of course all the audio related things, meeting all the companies, all the friends, other creators, and the fans. Absolutely love meeting all the fans out there, and of course everything else that has to do with touristy stuff, food, etc. So where shall we begin? Let's start off with day one, shall we? Day one, I went first to Zeppelin. Yes, the cafe and audio store, legendary in Singapore. If you're ever there, you have to stop by that place. They have so many high-end gear, also hard to find gear in Asia in general. And at that place, I demoed one particular brand that is probably the hardest to find in all of the world. This brand is Hidition. Yes, the famous brand behind Hidition Viento, which I do own. I love that IM a lot. Now, I would say the entire line that I tried, all four of them, the NT6, NT8, Violet, and Volts, I would say all of those are genuinely good IMs. None of them stood out to me as outwardly bad or had a big flaw about them. All of them were genuinely good. The one that stood out to me the most was actually the one that I didn't really like quite much. That is the Violet. Very bassy signature, but super well done. It is extremely clean bass canon. The NT6 and the NT8 were both decent as well. I enjoyed the NT6 a little bit more than the NT8. And lastly, the Volts, which wasn't my taste as well, but I can see a lot of people enjoying it. The bass felt really nice and satisfying, but the rest of the ranges I think needed some more work, some correction. The other notable IM that I tried at Zeppelin was the Symphonium Meteor. Yes, I had a lot of requests for me to try the Meteor, and finally I got to try it. The Meteor to me was alright. Yeah, I thought it was fine. It didn't really blow me away or impressed me all too much, but I really didn't think it was bad either. It was a little bit too bassy for my taste. It's kind of similar to the Violet in a way where the bass is just overwhelming the vocals for me. The vocals doesn't really shine as much, but there are audience for that particular signature, and I can see why people like it. Just for me, it wasn't as impressive. I much prefer the Helios, that one I fancy. And last but not least, I did try some headphones at Zeppelin as well. The most notable one is the HD60S Mark II. Now that one I didn't like so much. Yeah, I own the original 660S and also the HD600 and the 6XS, and the 660S sounded the worst to me. Yeah, I didn't quite like the 660S's kind of a little bit darker, tamer signature, and the Mark II kind of took that signature and for me at the time felt like it just added some warmth to it, so it made it even more congested sounding. So yeah, 660S Mark II is a no-go for me. I still recommend the original HD600. Moving on from Zeppelin, I next visited the Fatfreq headquarters. Yes, the mastermind behind the Maestro Mini, the hedonistic bassy IEM, and probably the most correct sounding bassy IEM on the market today. If you want a bass canon IEM, I recommend none other than the Maestro Mini. Now, being at the Fatfreq headquarters, I got to try the rest of their lineup, met the team, met the owner. All were really, really nice people, by the way. Love my time there. And the notable IEM that I tried is the Maestro Mini V2. This is still in prototype stage and no graphics available yet, but this one for me felt like a more V-shaped version of the Mini. So even more bass and even more treble. Though for me personally, I still prefer the original. I felt the original was cleaner, but the V2 does have more mid-bass, with a little bit of sacrifice that it does bleed into the lower mid. So for those of you who want more mid-bass slam and impact, you might like the V2 more. For me, I like my bass to be clean, bass canon, but clean, so I still prefer the original. And the next IM is their new flagship Grand Maestro. Now, this one was surprising to me. The vocals shine through more than I thought a Fatfreq IM would have vocals, because Fatfreq, they're known for their bass, right? The vocals actually shine through in this one, and I thought it sounded nice. But of course, with the price tag of a lot, I couldn't really justify recommending it over something like the Mini. Next location was probably the most special location out of the entirety of the trip, and that is the office of Critical himself. Yes, I was at Critical's office. I got to try a lot of IMs, a lot of which I'm not gonna share my impressions today because I tried a lot, so I'm just gonna share with you some notable ones. The first one being the original Blessing by Moondrop. Yes, this relic of an IM you can't buy anymore. And honestly, I see why they discontinued it. The Blessing 2 and 2 Dust are a clear step up from the original Blessing. The original Blessing just sounded thin. The bass was very BA-like, as in like not a lot of dynamics. It wasn't really fun sounding. Although I didn't really like the original Blessing so much, it still was quite a treat to get to try, again, such a relic IM. The second one that was notable is the Gold Planar AMT16. This one is somewhat hype in the high-end community, and I didn't like it. Like, not at all. And last but not least, I tried, of course, the version 3 of Project Red. Oh, ho, 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 ho. It's good. The most surprising thing about the IM is the bass. When you look at the graph, the bass doesn't look like there's a lot there, but when you listen to it, it is there, and it is quite prominent. I wouldn't say the star of the show, like I said, it's very balanced, neutral signature, but it's a lot more bass than you would expect from just reading the graph. My theory is that since the treble is a little bit on the tamer side, it kind of shifts your overall focus to the lower frequencies, thus the bass sounds more prominent, while at the same time sounding clean. So Project Red, good IM. And that concludes day 1 of the Singapore adventure. Day 2, I took my wife out to Garden by the Bay and did some touristy stuff. Day 3 is when the audio stuff resumed. And the first place we went to was lunch with Subtonic. Yes, you guys have been waiting for this. The impression of the Subtonic Storm and 2 of Nightjar's new prototype. So let's start with the prototype first, because I can say to you right now that prototype number 1, which is a 1DD, I don't like. It was bassy, it was muddy, it was not good. Prototype number 2 is not any better, just strange to me. I don't remember too much about prototype number 2, to be honest. Those two aside, the Storm. What can I say about the Storm? I think I found an IM that dethrones the C1R for bass quality. The bass on the Storm is ridiculously good. Like, it blew me away, and I'm not even a bass loving person. I like my bass, yes, but I'm by no means a bass head. But this bass seriously slaps hard, but at the same time, it sounded clean. Like the lower mids and the upper mids, the vocals are not affected in any way. The bass is just so dang good. The rest of the tuning I thought was really nice, inoffensive, on a tamer side. The vocals don't have as much energy as I would want, but some people will like that. The treble area, I wish there was a little bit more sparkle to it, but all in all, it's a very well-balanced, inoffensive signature with a monstrosity of bass performance. Does it live up to the hype of being an endgame IEM? For the most part, I would say yes. Is it worth the price? I would say, like most endgame IEMs, the price is steep. But if you have the money and you're looking for an endgame piece IEM, you like the design, you like the build, you like the sound, Subtonic Storm is an endgame piece that I can recommend. And finally, now we have reached Canjam. Yes, all of those impressions before was not even in Canjam itself. Now we're actually at the event. And again, the event was so wonderful. I loved my time there. I met so many other creators, a lot of brands, and a lot of fans. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the impressions. I tried a few IEMs and some headphones, so let's start off with the IEM first, starting with Jomo. Yes, Jomo Audio is a brand that I didn't really get a lot of chance to try much. So seeing them at the show, I had to take the opportunity to try their two most popular releases. The first one being their newest one, the Jomo Alpha Ti. Warm signature, bleedy, but great treble and timbral decay. Bass is punchy, just the bleed. The rest of the signature of the Alpha Ti is generally good. The timbre, the vocals sound largely correct from upper mid-range all the way to the treble area. The only spot that I don't like about the Alpha Ti is the obvious bass bleed. The next one is the GT600. This one was shouty and warm, and I didn't like it at all. Needless to say, the two Jomo that I tried didn't really compel me to try the rest of their lineup, so I left that table and went straight to Fir Audio with their new Radon 6, or RN6 for short. Now the Radon 6 is still a decisively bassy or V-shaped sounding IEM, though not my favorite signature. I would say it is an improvement over the other three in their Frontier line. Those three were not great, not good even. I didn't like any of the three. The Radon 6 sounded like an upgrade from those three IEMs. Good improvement, still not really my cup of tea when it comes to tuning. Speaking of not my cup of tea, the next table I went to is Campfire Audio. I tried three IEMs there, the new Andromeda Emerald C, the Solaris Horizon something, and of course the Trifecta, all of which were pretty bad. The Andromeda Emerald C just sounded like a very bassy Andromeda, which is not good because the original Andromeda is already kind of warm, and this one felt like they added more bass, which is no-go for me, very muddy. The Solaris, I don't even remember what that one sounded like. I just remember that I didn't really like it at all. And the third one, the Trifecta, is arguably the worst IEM I've tried at the entire event. To put it really lightly, it was eye-opening, it was a palate cleanser, it was an awe moment that this IEM at $3,000 with this graph, by the way, can sell out. Yes, it sold out. It blew my mind in more ways than 1,000. No, none of the new Campfire stuff is good. Next table, I went to visit Unique Melody and tried their new Mest 3 and also the Multiverse Mentor. So let's start with Multiverse Mentor. I didn't like it. It sounded thick, warm, and all in all, not very impressive of its signature. Hard pass on the Multiverse Mentor. The Mest Mark 3 felt alright to me, actually. I don't know if I prefer it over Mest 2. Is it impressive? Not really. I still prefer the Mest Mark 1. Next table, I went to Elysian to try their new prototype. I think they have a name now called Dio, and I love it. I love it. Just like the first time I tried it, I loved it then, and I love it now. Do I love it more than the Annihilator? For me, it's a toss-up. I still really like my Annihilator. I actually listened to the Annihilator all the way back from Singapore to Japan to kind of make sure and compare in my head if I feel like the Dio was as impressive as the Annihilator, and my conclusion at the moment is that they're on similar level, different focus of signature. The Dio leaned to the more sub-bassy side, while the Annihilator leans more on the bright and trebly side. Both of them complement each other well, and again, I like both. I really can't decide which one I like more than another, but yeah. Dio by Elysian, probably one of, if not the best IEM I've tried in the entirety of the trip. And last but not least, let's talk about headphones now. That was all the IEMs out of the way, and I tried 3 headphones at the event two Dan Clark audio ones, the Stealth and the Expanse, both of which I really love. The tuning on them are so nice. I'm so tempted to get a Stealth, but one issue with the Stealth and the Expanse kind of held me back from making that purchasing leap, and that is the transients. Although both headphones are tuned extremely well, like I love how they sound almost in entirety, the transients was a little soft. The details, the note definition wasn't really jumping at me. It wasn't really grabbing my attention. And for the price of that much, you want that level of engagement to be there, which on both of the headphones wasn't quite at the level that I want, which is a shame because they're both, again, tuned so well. Dan Clark. Why? And last but not least, the last gear to talk about in this video is the electrostatic headphone from Audeze, the legendary CRBN. Finally, I got to try an electrostatic headphone. And the CRBN, to me, was tuned quite well. I quite enjoyed it, but I didn't really feel the electrostatic performance that a lot of people talk about, like speed and all that. Keep in mind, with these headphone impressions, especially the open back ones, the impression might not be the most correct because, again, we're at an audio show where it's pretty dang loud in there, and open backs are not so great at isolating the sounds. But yeah, the CRBN in general felt like a really well-tuned headphone, not as well-tuned as the Dan Clarks. I much prefer the Dan Clark ones, but it sounded nice. And you know, now I can check off electrostatic headphone off my list of things to try. All right, that concludes my Canjam trip, Singapore trip, all the impressions. There were still so many audio stores that I didn't get to visit. So next trip, I'll try to get to all of those stores and film more of Singapore for you guys. But with all that being said, again, thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you all in the next video. I need to sleep. Peace out. Bye.